Hey guys, good evening. I'm Justin Buseth, and this is Self-Medicated. This is our last episode on authenticity, so we'll be done with it after tonight. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of retract something. I know on the first episode I talked about presenting this life on social media of like a glamorous and successful life, and like a picture perfect kind of life. And I don't want to think like it's not bad to do that, right? It's not bad to like post some pictures and show where your life's at, and the successes that you've attained and where you've gotten to in life, right? And I'm sure it took a lot of hard work to get there. I'm sure it did, but sometimes it's not always like trying to highlight the destination, but also talk and share about the journey, because I'm sure there was a lot of struggles along the way. I'm sure that there was some hardships and some losses, a lot of mistakes and failures too. And sometimes we want to share about that, because we gotta think about what's more helpful, what's more beneficial, what's more beneficial to somebody to say to them. Is it when you see somebody who's hurting or in a dark place, maybe? What's more helpful, going up to that person and saying, "Hey, I don't know if you've seen lately, but I have a new Facebook post about my amazing, awesome life. You should check it out sometime. It's pretty awesome, and smoking hot wife on the yacht, blah blah blah. Give it again, and don't forget to look at it when you get a chance." Is that helpful, or is it going up to somebody and saying, "Hey, I see where you're at. I just want to let you know that I've been there too, and I know what it feels like, and I got out, and I think you can get out too," right? So let's not get so caught up in sharing all the good that we don't, share the bad and the ugly, because the things that we often want to forget about and hide and, like just cover up are usually the things that people need to hear, right? God has a funny way of doing that, man. That's the part of your story that really touches, that really changes, that really like reaches out and grabs somebody's heart and gives them hope. So let's not just forget about that. Okay, so excuses. I don't want you guys leaving this authenticity study without like using authenticity in a way where it shouldn't be used. So let's just get right into it. Being rude or insensitive. So being genuine and authentic is not an excuse to say hurtful or thoughtless comments to somebody, right? Or like, and you can't just do it and be like, "Oh, I was just speaking my mind. I'm just being authentic and speaking my mind." You got to consider how your words affect and impact others. A couple years back, there was this kid who killed himself from bullying. All the kids at school were bullying him, and like not all the kids, but a great majority of his class were all saying mean things to him day after day, and he had to listen to it day after day, and eventually he took his own life. And that's how powerful our words are. And it makes me wonder, like, I wonder what he would have done if all his classmates were, like, speaking life to him and were encouraging him every day and were saying nice and kind things about him. I wonder what he would have done with his life then. He probably could have become a president or something. Who knows what he could have achieved if that had been switched. So consider your words when you talk to other people. Encourage people. Lift people up. All right. Avoiding self-improvement. Being authentic is not an excuse, like I said yesterday, for avoiding like self-improvement, to avoid change or growth. You can't just be like, "Oh, this is who I am." Especially if your behavior is toxic or harmful to others. All right. Being selfish. Authenticity is not an excuse to be selfish. And you can be true to yourself. Being true to yourself is not making yourself a priority, right? Especially over the needs and feelings of others. You should always consider others' needs and feelings. Next one, being selfish. Refusing to compromise or adapt. So you should adapt to social norms. Being true and genuine and authentic doesn't trump adapting to other people's needs and like more to think that relationships trump it. Remember, my series, the studies I'm doing right now, are on virtues and values. And this is just one virtue, but it doesn't trump all the other virtues that are out there. Your goal is to become a virtuous man or woman. And that should come first over the desire for you to be yourself. Remember, most of the world, a lot of countries don't have the freedoms we do. We think of it as we're entitled to being authentic and to having like an individuality and a freedom of speech and a freedom of our own mind and a way of thinking. And yeah, it is all right in this country, but also a lot of the world doesn't have that. They have to conform to whatever the dictatorship is or something, and then they have to adopt a different frame of mind. They don't have the freedom of religion or the freedom of speech and all that stuff. So we should really look at this sometimes as like a gift too, right? We shouldn't look at it like I'm entitled to this. We should look at it like, man, look how blessed I am to live in this country where I had this, Let's not abuse it. Let's not take our rights to authenticity and our individuality and the freedoms we have and abuse them, but let's be grateful for them and cherish them and also consider the ones of others. Okay, what's next? Compromise also. Wait, hold on. Let me back up really quick. We also want to compromise in relationships. Relationships, there's a give and take in all relationships, and it can't always be like if you being true to you is especially if it's your spouse. You should always consider the needs and wants of your spouse and make compromises sometimes. What's next? Engaging in bad habits. Oh, jeez. Some people use authenticity as a way to justify unhealthy behaviors and destructive habits. And just be like, oh, this is who I am, right? When it's really an excuse to avoid accountability. And I have had many bad habits in my life, and I still struggle with bad habits today. And I said plural habits, multiple habits. I wanted to share a little something. When I was younger, I hope this study goes out to more younger people. But when I was younger, a young man, I really wanted to be looked at like kind of a tough badass because I thought that's what a man was. I didn't really grow up with a steady father figure and a lot of positive male role models, and I thought being a tough badass was the kind of person I wanted to be. So I did what tough badasses would do, and I hung around them, and I ran with them, and I did things, and even though these experiences and these relationships and stuff did toughen me up, it wasn't able to change the core of who I was, right? And I got a lot of bad habits along the way, because the core of who I was, of who I am today, is more of like a goofy and lovable clown than a tough badass, sadly. God, I wanted to be one so bad. But I had to get everybody else on board with the idea. So I had to waste all my time and energy to try to convince everybody that I was this. That's who I was, And but the goofy, lovable clown always popped out, and I loved to make people laugh, and I liked attention, and I liked just bringing happiness to people, and people could tell, I think. And so, and when you try to live with a personality like that and adopt that. When people make jokes at your expense or something insulting that which attacks that character that you're trying to project, you get very defensive over it because it's not real and it's not fake. So it's so fragile in your mind that when somebody says something, you're so quick to take it personal, But when you live authentically and you are who you are, and who you project to the world is who you are behind closed doors, people can say stuff to you, man. It's just whatever, because you know who you are. Right? You're not trying to defend or protect this ego of an identity you're trying to project, to show everybody. You just are who you are. So I want you guys, I'm going to go through a list of some things to watch out for as I leave you guys alone for tonight and probably for a couple days. Watch out for these things creeping up in yourself. One of them is imitation. If you find yourself trying to copycat others, it's one thing to admire traits in other people and want to adapt them for yourself, right? That's a little different than just outright being a copycat. Watch out for that. And pretending to be something you're not. Don't try to pretend to be something you're not. You can, however, act as if, as we say, as my stepdad says, act as if, which is kind of like fake it till you make it, but just a little nicer, where you want to adopt certain traits that are positive and act them out. They're not really natural to you yet, but as you practice them, they become natural. Superficiality. Watch out for superficiality, which is wanting to polish up the outside and look good and not really do the work inside to be good, So don't get so caught up in the outside and your appearance that you don't deal with the heart. Conforming to external pressures. If you want to change, change. Don't change because others to fit in with other people or to be accepted. Change because you want to change. Dishonesty. Watch out for dishonesty within yourself. Because sometimes we can have a tendency to lie to even ourselves, man, and deceive ourselves. Like the heart is deceitful. Who can know it? So guard your heart and be honest with yourself. Do some self-reflecting once in a while. I do it all the time. That's not true. All right. Overcompensating for insecurities. The person who is insecure, so he acts more confident. Like, you ever seen people who, like, they're trying too hard? It's like, okay, bro, settle down. Don't try too hard. Like, if you aren't there yet or you're not that person, just be honest and vulnerable about it. People are more impressed by that because a lot of people feel the same way, but they're too timid or afraid also to say anything. So when you do it, they're like, wow, Like this one guy, I knew this kid. All right, last thing, I'll shut up. I knew this kid. He was such a nerd, and he would talk about Dungeons and Dragons and all this other stuff. And I would think to myself, like, what the heck? I'm like, this guy, like, doesn't he know that that's lame? Why is he actually telling me this? Doesn't he know like I'm a person? Like, he doesn't care what I think. And I laid there, and I would be envious of this kid because I'm like, he didn't care what I think, and I did. I cared what everybody thought for so long, and like that kid did not. And I was like I wanted to be like that so bad, and I couldn't because I cared too much. And now I don't so much, And I gotta say, being the lovable clown is way cooler than being the tough badass that I thought was cool. So, anyways, you guys have a good night. I hope that was edifying and helpful. And love you guys. God bless.